discussion and conclusion of your paper. Dear students, immediately after presenting your results of the study, you are required to provide the section which is titled as discussion and conclusion. And remember that if your study is combining these two sections together, then it is titled as discussion and conclusion. But if your discussion is exceptionally long and you want to go for another long section of your conclusion, then you can keep them separate, right? So it's totally up to you, and it's totally up to the nature of your study, that whether you are going to combine them together in your research study or you are going for separate sections of the two, right? So it's totally up to your selection and the nature of study. It is the final section of a research study, the discussion and conclusion, right? And remember that in discussion section, you are actually focusing on your research questions, right? And you are answering your research questions, and you are discussing your results, but which are based on your research questions, okay? So now in the results section, you were presenting the results which were collected and, which ultimately you had found from your study, okay? But in this section, which is called discussion, your discussion is basically on your research questions, right? And you are discussing them in the light of your data which you collected, in the light of your results, okay? So now it's, the discussion focus is on your research question, okay? So this section discusses the results and concludes the study, okay? Results are interpreted in the light of research question and also hypotheses, if any, okay? Because this is the time you would go back to your research questions and hypotheses. You would restate your research question and hypothesis, and of course you would discuss them in the light of your results, right? So this is the section which is allotted to the discussion of research questions in the light of your data, right, in discussion. And the findings of the study are discussed, okay? While addressing those research questions, the findings are discussed in greater detail, and they are not only discussed in the light of your own data, but you are also discussing your results in the light of previously carried out studies, okay? So that is something which is also really important, and which is to be noted, that you are required to discuss your findings, in the light of previous research studies, okay? So that is done in this section, and then you are going to evaluate your own study in this section, right, which is the conclusion. And the strengths and the weaknesses of the study are given, like if there are some limitations of the study, then they are to be given in the conclusion section of the study, right? So this is the time you would reflect upon the strength and the weaknesses of your study yourself, okay? And you would like to show any kind of limitations, and of course you can also mention other important aspects which may be called the weakness of your study, right? So these are the points which are to be covered here. And in your conclusion, you can also comment on any possibility of future research, particularly related to your topic, right? So further research may also be discussed here. Any possible preferences as a researcher you would like to mention to the future researchers in your field, right? So you can also give your future suggestions here. And then if there is any implication, it might be like the policy implication or the pedagogical implication, particularly in educational research and research related to language teaching. Of course, we might have some pedagogical implications at the end, right? So this is the time you would definitely discuss your implications and suggestions of the study, and they are to be given in this final section of the study, okay? So discussion and conclusion, that's the final section of your research paper. After this discussion conclusion, you will give the end list of references, right? So in APA style, the list is titled as references, right? And in the MLA style, the title of this end list references is written as works cited, right? So it's up to your documentation style that whether you are following APA or MLA, right? And after your, this end list references, you can also attach any appendix, right? Or appendices. So it's totally up to you. If you think that there is something which is to be attached, which may not be put into the main body of the research, paper, you can also put it there in the appendices section of your research paper. So this was all about the components of a published research paper, which we discussed one by one, starting from the title and going through the abstract, then introduction, and then methodology or methods, then results, and finally reaching discussion and conclusion. And of course, we are required to document references. So the references and list and the appendices are optional. So if you have some appendices, you can add them at the end of your research paper. So these are the major components of a research paper.